What's up, everybody? It's the great L. Bushman. Weird fact for this week: sloths only come down from trees once a week to go to the bathroom. And now let's start the show.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Ray's Rewind with L. Bushman and Drew.
Jansen. That is into center field. Here comes Kiermaier. Phillips has tied the game. Arose Arena coming around. Throw home. Now he stumbles. But the ball gets away. Tampa Bay wins it. Brett Phillips, game 4 hero.
The sickest Tampa Bay Rays podcast. It's gonna be sick.
Welcome in, everybody. It is the Rays Rewind podcast, the sickest Tampa Bay Rays podcast on the Sick Media Network. I am, of course, one of your hosts, L. Bushman, and as usual is my co-host, Drew. Welcome in, everybody. Make sure you go to our YouTube page, the Sick Podcast, Rays Rewind on YouTube, to hit that subscribe and notification bell. So on tonight's show, a Tampa Bay Rays starter goes down. The Trop was rated a worst stadium again, and some more news and notes, but we begin tonight with Taj Bradley going down and won't be out for a couple of weeks. He is out with a pec strain and will return to his throwing from day to day will be in the next few weeks, and now the ship is sinking, apparently, from Rays Twitter folks, that the season is lost, according to some people. Once again, Rays fans on Twitter, please stop what you're doing and just let the season play out. It's just one pitcher who is our fifth projected starter. For God's sakes, calm down. Drew, thoughts on Taj Bradley going down? Which, you know what, isn't a bad thing. We could have problems like the Yankees are having with Garrett Cole, who's going to be out 1 to 2 months, and we don't know if he might come back. It could be Tommy John. You never know.
It could be. I mean, Taj going down, he was the pitcher I was most excited to see to start the year. We had talked about him last week, and I think his ceiling, just him coming up a year too early last year out of necessity and pitching, I would say, as well as one could have hoped probably in his situation. Mm-hmm. And then for him to have that off season to come into spring training, just I think more confident, and assured of his spot on the rotation, and he looked great in his first start against the Yankees too, and
he went scoreless that outing, didn't he?
I believe so, maybe one run if any, but he didn't shy away from getting on the bus and going to face the Yankees, a pretty much opening day roster, opening day lineup, and did great. So I was really looking forward. He was the one I was looking forward to the most to start the year. So I'm disappointed, of course. I'm just grateful, when they come out and say he's scratched from a start and there's no news, you're just praying it's not
usually
an elbow.
Bad news.
It's not an elbow or a shoulder. So the fact that it was a pectoral muscle is, certainly
he's got to stop doing push-ups in between innings.
Right. He's got to get on my workout plan, which is no lifting weights and no push-ups.
Drew, do you have him on your list of players with a lot to prove this season? Obviously, there's a couple other guys on that list, but do you have him on that list of, hey, we've seen some good things out of you, we've seen some horrible things out of you. Now you're up here. You're in our rotation now. It's time to prove your worth. It's time to prove that you can be one of our guys in our rotation. Do you think he's at the top of the list, or do you think he's in that middle of the list of those guys? Obviously, Brandon Lau is at the top of the list for everybody.
That was the name I had.
That was a top guy for you. Okay.
Wanted to see him put together another 39, 99 season, 39 homer season, but. He, as far as the pitching staff goes, because I feel like the bullpen is pretty locked down.
Yeah, we're good to go on that. We don't have to worry about the bullpen.
A lot of returning, cast of characters. They look great today, by the way, in their spring training game. But as far as the pitching rotation, you talk about, I think him and honestly, Savale, Littell, and Ryan Pepio definitely they all have something to prove. Mm-hmm. I think, again, he was Taj is the one out of those 4 that I was most intrigued by. So he would be high on my list. Certainly not the only one on the pitching staff that needs to be, uh, you know, proving that they, belong to, they belong here, that they can actually contribute. But he, for me personally, was high on my list just because I think his ceiling is as high as it could be. He could have as high of a ceiling as anyone on the roster with regards to pitching. So, for it to be a pectoral strain though is, I think, like I said, it's more positive than if it was, elbow or shoulder. So it's a bummer that he's going to miss, opening day and probably be a couple weeks into the season before we might see him. But again, I think, I don't know what his inning count was last year. I'd have to pull it up, but I can't imagine that the Rays were going to let him just go full bore. I'm sure there was some sort of innings limit that they had in mind. And so kind of similar to Tyler Glasnow last year, obviously he was out for a longer period of time than Taj Bradley will hopefully be, but there was talk of an innings limit for Tyler, and then the oblique issue he had forced him out for the first, what was it, maybe month and a half or 2 months. And so that kind of naturally allowed him to not have to be limited the rest of the year. And I think with Taj, him missing maybe a handful of starts at the beginning of the year is certainly not worst case scenario, and maybe makes things a little bit easier on the back end when it comes to an innings limit and having to monitor his workload. But it doesn't change the fact that now in the front part of the year, these first month with the what I believe is a tough schedule, it definitely just puts more pressure on the guys that are in the rotation. And now we'll see what the Rays decide to do if they try to a couple guys. I know that they've extended out or want to extend out, like Chris Davinsky or Tyler Alexander, to name a few. Like they could extend them out or maybe go bullpen day.
I was just about to say that they could go bullpen day for a start. So, and look at it this way: he was 5-8 out of 21 starts. He had 104 innings logged last year. It's a manageable injury. A pectoral is nothing to scream your head and say, hey, this season is lost, like a lot of people on Twitter are doing because they're a bunch of idiots. But hey, there's still a guy out there that doesn't have a job. He's just kind of sitting around waiting for somebody to pay him some money. I'm not opposed to it. And even though I was blocked by Blake Snell for some reason. He blocked me on Twitter, and I've never said, let me backpedal that. I've never said anything bad about him on Twitter. Now on podcast, that's a different story. But
yeah,
throw some money at Blake. Like, hey, look, we'll give you a 1-year deal worth a lot of money, and we'll bring you over. Why not? Come on.
Yeah, he'd have to do like one of those deals that we've seen recently with who was it? Matt Chapman, maybe, or Cody Bellinger. These Boris clients. I don't know if Matt Chapman's a Boris client, but some of these Boris clients that are doing short-term deals with opt-outs.
I think Chapman is a Boris client, because I think the only two that are left are JD Martinez and Snell. Everybody else has been signed.
Montgomery.
Oh yeah, Montgomery's still. Hey man, Stewie, I know you're uncomfortable about the payroll, but come on, just open up that pocketbook and just throw some money at a guy that can help us out in the rotation. I'm just saying.
Yeah. I mean, he would have to want to come back to Tampa Bay, which is, I know that he loves Kyle Snyder, and there's been nothing but good things said in the media from him about the Rays and his time here. I wouldn't be shocked to know if there's still some awkwardness about how things went in the World Series, but
you gotta
back
get
in 2020,
you gotta get
yeah,
we're over. Everybody's over that. We're over that. Come on.
I guess
somewhat.
If I put myself in Blake Snell's shoes again, though, it's just like,
how can I trust you? How can I?
Like, there is literally no bigger moment than what they were in at that point, and he was pitching the game of his life,
right?
And they didn't have enough trust in him, or conversely, just had more trust in the numbers,
the analytics side of it,
analytics to pull him. And so if you're Blake Snell and you're thinking, okay, well, what do I have to prove? Like, there's no situation bigger than what he was in right there, and they didn't
Do you think
allow him to.
do you think millions of dollars can like maybe cure that?
I mean, probably. I mean, I'm sure anything could be forgotten with the right price. I just think it takes two to tango. So it would
Very true.
require the Rays to be willing to commit. I don't know what he wants average annual. I would imagine I think he was wanting like 6 years, 200 something million, right?
That
Initially,
was
is what
the
we're
initial
saying.
offer, I think, in
So,
January,
I
and
mean, so
then teams were like,
yeah,
no, we're
you're
not going to
talking
do
like 30 to 40 million dollars a year. So now the Rays have to be willing to commit to that 2 to 3 years, at minimum, and give him opt outs. And he might very well may opt out, but
it. Mhm.
then on top of that, Blake's got to be willing to accept a shorter contract and not get the desired length that he wants. So,
Well, you could look at
um,
it this way. He could take something like Soto does, because Soto got a 1-year deal with the Yankees, and he'll probably go in the free agency maybe once again after the offseason and either sign with the Yankees for a big deal or go somebody else.
mhm.
He could do something like that. I blame this all on Wander Franco, because all that money was tied up in Wander Franco, and now we really can't do anything because nobody wants to
Yeah,
give anybody $100 million anymore in this team because of issues.
it's just interesting. I feel like with the Rays, like I don't think now that Taj is out for a little bit, obviously the depth is already being tested, which is something
Right.
that we're used to as Rays fans. I you know I don't think a Taj Bradley injury for at worst case the first month of the season is enough for the Rays to be like, hey, let's change course here and
Right.
we got to fill this hole quickly. And ironically, with the Rays though, if it was like Shane McClanahan, all these injuries they've had, Jeffrey Springs, and then like let's say Zach Eflin goes down, knock
Mm,
on wood,
yeah.
the Rays would say, well, yeah, that's a big injury, so we're just probably going to plan for the next year. They
Yeah.
would still try to do with what they had. They're still not going to change course even with a major injury like that. So, um, I think it would require Blake Snell willing to take lower than market value and be willing to commit to a shorter term deal, and the Rays being willing to commit still the most money that they've ever had for one player over the course of for 3 years at least.
Right.
So,
And also,
um,
it's also up to the devil,
so
Scott
it's
Boras
a
himself. So
yeah, oh yeah, and Scott Boras. I mean, it's basically a no
Scott Boras
brainer.
would be like, I don't
It's
think so.
it's not going to happen. So,
Yeah.
um,
But one could
long shot.
wish, one could wish,
But
one
we've
could
talked about
wish.
this. I'm not the biggest Blake Snell fan. So I think if that's the player they're willing to spend, 30 plus million on for a year or 2 years, I don't know. Maybe he succeeds with Kyle Snyder again, but I'm not his biggest fan. I think that he's had two really good seasons and otherwise a lot of other seasons that have been pretty
Remember, it's only been 2. That's it.
head
2.
scratching, but when he's good, he's good. So
Right.
just don't know which one you're going to get. But again, it's not actually going to happen, unfortunately. So I won't
Okay.
belabor the point.
All right.
But
We'll
I
go.
thought you were going to say someone else.
No,
Actually,
no,
I thought
no.
you
I'm
were gonna,
saving that for the last segment of the show.
the final. Yeah,
We've got a kind of like a short show tonight. We've got some weird things to talk about. So we go from pectoral muscles to the Tropicana Field. Tropicana Field was ranked second worst major league ballpark according to USA Today. Of course, USA Today, one of the best credible sources of media of all time, when it comes to reporting stuff. The Trop was second to worst. Of course, the Coliseum in Oakland is ranked the worst baseball stadium in Major League Baseball. But the Trop did get good marks about food and beer prices and food accessibility and concession stands. They were ranked one of the top. But when it comes to total stadium wise, we were ranked second the worst. And I think that was the second year in a row they were ranked second the worst. So look, this is the top of a conversation that everybody has every single year about the Trop, and it's still ongoing about where the stadium's proposal is going to be built, if they're ever going to break ground, the end of the year. Look, either you hate the Trop or you like the Trop, and for some people it's one of the worst places to be, but for some, including myself, it's a baseball stadium in Florida that has a dome. You're not sitting outside in the heat or the rain or the hurricanes that come about because you get to watch baseball inside. So are there some areas that really need more upgrading? Yeah, sure. It's been there forever, and you know, it's maybe not the best baseball stadium to watch baseball in, but it gets the job done. Now, obviously, do they need a new home? Yes, but it is what it is. Thanks, USA Today, for making us feel bad for ourselves once again.
Do you know any Rays fans that don't like the Trop? Like,
I know a few, and their biggest gripe is, their biggest gripe is it seems run down, or the seats aren't that great, or it's too dark in there, or the catwalks obstruct views and stuff like that. But then I hear the other side where the Trop is, hey, there's not a bad seat in the house, which I don't think
Yep.
there is.
No.
Food's great. They do a lot for the fans that are there, especially with kids on Sundays to get to run the bases and stuff like that. So I've heard both sides. To me, it kind of depends on the day that I'm there, if it's a bad time or a good time. But most of the time that I'm there, I have a good time. I've really never had a bad experience at the Trop where I can say, oh, this place is horrible. I mean, there was one time when I was sitting out in outfield, I think in the beach area, and this was a long time ago, where I saw cockroaches, scurrying along looking for food during a game. I mean, that was the only bad experience I had. But other than that, I really haven't had one. I mean, most of the time the ushers there are really nice people, but other than that, it's not a bad stadium. I just, it gets a lot of knocks which aren't warranted, but hey, it's the press.
I hadn't been to another major league stadium in a while. I had gone to Turner Field quite a bit as a kid, or and when I was in college, went a few different times. But otherwise, I had only been to the Trop, and I saw and I went to a bunch of them when I was a little kid out west and stuff on family trips, but I don't really have many memories of it too much. But like I saw Candlestick Park, and I even saw the Nationals play at RFK Stadium. So I've seen some bad stadiums in my day.
Look, my first stadium was at Fenway Park, and to me, I thought Fenway Park was a dump. I know everybody's, oh, it's one of the last, great American baseball parks. Yeah, that's great, but it's also kind of a dump. It smelled like piss, like going and walking through there. It smelled like pee, and the seats were really bad. Like they were worse seats at Fenway Park than at the Trop.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I'm a homer. I'm biased, of course. I absolutely love the Trop. Anybody that is willing to argue about that with me, I'm more than happy to,
you'll have to go through me because Drew's not
offer
really
rebuttal.
He's not on Twitter, so you have to go through
Yeah,
me.
that's true. But face to face, I can argue with the best of them. As a former season ticket holder, and I certainly have been to my fair share of games, went to 20 plus games in 2022, and I think 25 or 26, and, a handful last year, and, in 21 as well. I've got my routine. I know right where to go, prepay parking. I know the best parking lots to be in. I know the quickest ways to get in and get to my seats. I think I know, concessions. There's just so much familiarity for me that I have my most enjoyable baseball viewing experiences at the Trop, at bar none. And I've just seen some great games there too. So it's always going to hold a special place in my heart. And anybody that doesn't like the Trop, I feel like is more of just either an elitist. So they feel like because they're a Yankees fan or a Red Sox fan, they have these historic ballparks. I know Yankee Stadium's newer, but obviously similar to the old one, that, oh, it's a dump or whatever. But like you said, there's nothing like, practically speaking, is the best you could hope for, and you can't complain about being in a comfortable 72 degrees when it's either scorching hot outside, or it's the second coming of the flood outside, and you're inside watching baseball comfortably. The environment's great when it's loud and it's full. Those playoff games in 21 were as loud as I've ever been to have had experience at a baseball game, let alone a sporting event. And I don't know, man, it's just great. They got great food. The people are nice there. I think Rays fans in general are a pretty nice group of people. So, I'm not surprised. It's hard on the outside to put it higher than what it is, to be honest with you. But when I was at Camden Yards, which is number 4 on this list for USA Today, I was at Camden Yards in the fall watching the Rays in that final series against the Orioles. And don't get me wrong, beautiful ballpark. It was great. And I only loved being there because I was able to watch the Rays there. But like half the time I was just like, I kind of, would I rather be at the Trop right now?
Yes.
Yeah, kind of.
Of course.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you?
I mean, it was a great experience with my son, and I wouldn't trade that for anything. But I kind of wish we were at the Trop in our seats in left field, watching this game. And that's the other thing too, outfield seats that go to the wall. That for me, I love the intimacy of it. And sitting out in the outfield, we talked about this as well, is my favorite place to be, especially at the Trop, because we would sit 4 or 5 rows, and it's like Randy Arozarena is right there.
See, my favorite spot is the standing room only in the railings, where you can kind of pick your spot. Boom, post up, and you're good to go.
Yeah. So listen, Tropicana Field is, if you really know it, you love it. And if you don't, you're going to hate on it because it's, the cool thing to do. But I'll tell you what, I talked to a lot of visiting fans at the Trop too in my time. And I would say overwhelmingly they enjoy their experience at the Trop. They're usually surprised because of all the bad things they've heard coming in. But I rarely have encountered someone that's visiting that doesn't enjoy their experience. So take that for what it will.
All right, we're going to end the show on a spicy topic. And I'm going to ruffle some feathers. I know I will. I have in my mind who I'm going to ruffle feathers with, because they scream about this on X. I'm not really on Facebook anymore about Ray stuff, because Facebook is just, it's not good anymore. So, we started the show about pitching, about Taj being out. Now, this guy has, obviously he has off the field stuff. That's off the field stuff. You could get him for pennies, maybe even less than pennies. And he's even said he'll pay them to play for them. I'm just saying, why not the Rays maybe pay next to nothing and go and get Trevor Bauer if it's going to help you out? He's been showing so far he's still I'm not going to call him an elite pitcher like he's self-proclaiming himself, but he still has quality stuff. And I think having that almost insurance card there, just in case if a starter goes down, with a guy that's proved it in the majors. Now, obviously, with the suspensions and the off-field stuff and this antics before, but I think obviously you're going to maybe take a small PR hit, and with the Rays, they take PR hits all the time about stuff. Obviously, it's kind of bad timing with Wander Franco, but if you can get him for pennies on the dollar, why not get Trevor Bauer? You're a rebuttal, Drew, because I know you're opposite of this. Unless you changed your mind.
No. No, I would disagree with your categorization of a little or slight PR hit. I think it would be a huge PR hit. And
are you saying that because of where they're at with Wander?
I personally think that I don't think anyone in this Wander situation has ever criticized how the Rays have handled this. I think if anything,
true.
I think the Rays have been commended. Any feedback that has been shared publicly about the Rays and their handling of this situation has been, I think, overwhelmingly positive.
Right.
They certainly haven't come out and really said anything to let where they stand, but they're just letting everything play out. But obviously they got him out of there, and he hasn't been on the team since things hit the fan, and that's never changed. So I think they've done a really good job from a PR standpoint of how they've handled the Wander Franco situation. I think with the Trevor Bauer situation, I know that some things came out about the one case that was getting a lot of the attention, that perhaps there was some misleading by the female. I'm not entirely sure. I believe there are some open cases still against him, though.
I'm not sure about the open case. I know the one that he had was dismissed because it came out she was trying to blackmail him for money. So
Right.
that was the one that was dismissed, and that was the one that I think that came down when MLB were like, "You're kind of suspended for almost 2 years." That was the one that put the suspension over the top. Look, I'm only saying this. I'm not. What you do off the field is what you do off the field, and obviously his character's a little iffy. But I'm looking at this as a baseball standpoint, a baseball standpoint, where if he's, you're going to get him less than nothing. If you're not going to get him if you're going to get him for like league minimum, why not try him out? Not put him in right away. Try him out. Try him out and see how he does. Try him out. See if he can, keep his mouth shut. Keep his character in check. Try him out just to see how he does, because it could be. If you're getting from him for pennies on the dollar, if you're getting for league minimum, it's not going to really cost you anything. And if you have to cut him, cut him. It's not going to really cost you nothing. So looking at it as a baseball standpoint, now I know some people are like, oh, well, he's just a bad person. Look, there's a lot of bad people out there, especially athletes. Athletes are somewhat assholes. But if he's campaigning for this, and I would say, people like an underdog story, people like a second chance in this country. We've seen it plenty of times. I'm sure there's going to be a team out there probably later in the season that's going to look at this and say, we can get this guy for cheap. We can stick him in either last in the rotation or in relief to help us out. It could be a boom or a bust. Why not take a chance?
Yeah. I just think that it's not something that any Major League Baseball team obviously can't prove anything that's gone out to these teams, but I think it's clear that they're just blackballing them. So I don't, and I just think regardless, if the Rays signed him, I guess I would certainly do more due diligence into seeing these open cases and just looking at all those facts to see, to really make an informed opinion about like how I feel about him specifically. But I just know that the way the Rays operate, like I think the chance of them ever actually entertaining an offer for him are slim to none.
And I can agree with it. I can agree with that, because the way I think the biggest thing where they're at with where the Wander situation is look, we can't, I know I said, hey, why not take a chance? You can get it for pennies on the dollar to maybe help out your rotation. Obviously, with the Wander thing, it's like, well, do we really want to say, okay, well, we might be signing a guy that has these alleged charges against, these alleged things against him? Should we, it's like, oh, well, it's like the Rays would be like, well, we're hypocrites pretty much. You know what I mean?
And also, not that I don't think this is for nothing too. Trevor Bauer is not exactly a guy that is giving himself the benefit of the doubt in terms of his personality and how he's shown himself to Major League Baseball fans. I mean, this is the guy that, he's kind of been a jerk. There's, certainly things have come out about, I don't think he's the best clubhouse presence. Always kind of ruffled feathers with people that he's played with. I believe, there's a long thing about him and Garrett Cole kind of being enemies.
Well, that's good. So if he signs with the Rays, they can go against each other.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Back in college, and he's not I don't think the easiest guy to have in the clubhouse in general. Okay. So then when you add in all the PR hit that they're going to get for signing him because of the legal situations that he's been involved in, it's a lot to stomach for a guy that hasn't pitched in Major League Baseball in a few years. And, he's had a couple good seasons. He's had some good seasons, but he's also been pretty shaky. And you're talking about a guy who chucked the baseball from the mound over the center field wall because he was so frustrated, just antics like that. Like there's just so much to overcome in order to make a signing make sense for the Rays that it's not going to happen. And I'd be shocked if any team would be willing to do it just because of what I think is some sort of message or something that's gone out that,
Okay.
I mean, he pitched for those Dodgers prospects. You see that, and
I did.
he did really well. But there were no,
I think he had 3 scoreless innings today. I think he pitched today or yesterday, and he had 3 scoreless innings.
yeah, and there were no scouts on hand, which I guarantee you, teams knew that he was going to do this, and they certainly weren't just surprising people and just showing up unannounced. I'm sure his agency put that out there that he was going to be doing that. So,
Trevor Bauer's like the Colin
plen-
Kaepernick.
yeah, plenty of teams are within walking distance of where he was in Arizona for spring training, and not one single team just said, you know what, we're going to show up and watch him pitch just out of curiosity. So I think that shows you right there. It is a major uphill battle. I think it will be sometime, if any time at all, that for him to actually get signed by a team. I think it's certainly not going to be anytime soon, if I had to guess. So the Rays,
I respect your debate. That's why we have these types of shows. Now everybody on Twitter is going to be like, "Oh, L. Bushman, how could you say those types of things?" It's a podcast, everybody, man. Like, don't take it too seriously. It's topics to talk about. So, hey, man, that's why we do these things. That's why we talk about them, to have debates. Plus, I lost the coin toss. Like, Drew really wanted to do this anyway, so I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding, folks. I'm just kidding. All right, well, that's going to do it for us on the Rays Rewind podcast, the sickest Tampa Bay Rays podcast on the Sick Media Network. We will be back next week, most likely on Tuesdays. Like, when people get sick, we have to push things out, but we'll be back on Tuesday with a brand new show. Make sure to go to our YouTube page, hit that subscribe notification bell at the Sick Podcast Rays Rewind. For myself and Drew, we'll see you guys later.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Rays Rewind with L. Bushman and Drew on YouTube, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.